up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the Detroit Lions Week 1 matchup against the Chicago Bears and a little bit of a game plan, how the Detroit Lions can get it done. Let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. It is good to be back and discuss some more Detroit Lions. And it is officially Bears week, guys. I mean, this is Bears week. We are no longer focusing on training camp or the draft or the main part of free agency. Now we're focused on NFL season. We're focused on the Lions season. We're focused on the season opener. And as you guys can see from the board, in only 5 days, the Detroit Lions will kick off against the Chicago Bears. So we got to start focusing on the season. It's awesome to just think that we're this close. And as you guys can see underneath that, only 2 days until the NFL season kicks off with the Texans and the Chiefs. So your question of the day is this: who you got? You got the Texans or you got the Chiefs? That will be a Thursday night game. I think it would be cool to see the Texans win this game. I think this is going to be a really good one. I mean, this is going to be good. It's kind of like a playoff rematch where we know the Texans got out that big lead and Chiefs came back. I can see this going either way. However, right now I'm leaning towards the Chiefs. I'm leaning towards the Chiefs right now, but I may have a prediction video with T or something coming out soon on that. Anyways, let's focus on the Detroit Lions matchup, okay? Now, unfortunately, this is week 1, so we have no film on the Chicago Bears whatsoever. We don't even have preseason film to look at from this year because there was no preseason. So, unlike most of the other weeks, and we did this last year with the Kansas City Chiefs game because it was such a big game that I did a game plan to it, how the Lions can beat this team, because not a lot of people thought we could beat the Chiefs. So I want to do a video on it, kind of take away what their weaknesses are, what they do often, things like that. And unfortunately for Chicago, this one's going to be a little bit tougher because we haven't seen them at all this season. Obviously, things are going to change. You're going to do things differently. You have new players. So we haven't got to see them at all. So all I can do is look at last season and then take a look at some of the main additions they made and what kind of impact they could have on the team heading into this season. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down that week 1 matchup. And I'm really just going to be looking on maybe what they do a lot, where the Lions had success against them last season. But another unfortunate thing of this is that Matthew Stafford didn't play against Chicago in either game last year. So we didn't get to see that Darrell Bevell, Matthew Stafford offense, which, as we know, when Matthew Stafford went down, Darrell Bevell kind of tailored the offense differently towards the quarterback that was on the field. So it's a little bit tough to, look at week 1 in this Chicago Bears matchup. The second time we play Chicago will be much easier because we'll already have game film on them. This one's going to be a little bit tougher, but I think it's something that we should do. So if you guys do support the heck out of this, we will continue to do this every week. I don't know if it'll be Tuesdays, but I thought I would just do it today because I'm excited to talk about this week 1 matchup, all right? Now, before we get into it, I just have a little bit of information. I may do another video on this, probably. I don't know. But I just want to point this out there. Lions have released a lot of the jersey numbers for Jeffrey Okudah and DeAndre Swift. I will throw them on the screen right now. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. I know some people are interested in that, but that's not the main part of today's video. Today's video is all about week 1 against the Chicago Bears. Now, like I said, we got to look at 2019. So the first thing we're going to do is look at 2019 stats. Now, we know this does not mean that's what they're going to be like in 2020, all right? We saw the 49ers do it. We've seen a lot of teams go worse to first. We've seen this, okay? 1 year to the next can be completely different. You can get worse, you can get better, you can stay the same. We have no idea. We have no idea what this team's going to really look like in 2020. But our best guess will be looking back at 2019. And in 2019, statistically, they weren't even that great. Now, defensively, they were pretty darn good. Offensively, they weren't. They were not good offensively. They finished 8-8 on the season, and they were 3rd in the NFC North. Obviously, 2 of those wins coming against our Detroit Lions. I don't think they would have won both if Matthew Stafford was out there. They probably honestly would have lost both if Matthew Stafford was on the field. I'll just say that. But let's first look at their offense. Let's look at Chicago's offense from last season. Let me just say, you're probably not going to be super impressed. They were 29th in points per game with 17.5. Yeah, that's not a lot at all. 29th in total yards. They were 11th in turnovers, though. They only had 19 turnovers on the season, which isn't bad. 25th in passing yards, 26th in passing touchdowns, 30th in rushing. Yeah, I didn't even think they were that low. 3.7 yards per carry. We were better than that last season. 3.7 yards per carry for Chicago. That's tough, and that really hurts the offense when you can't pass or throw. Penalties-wise, they were pretty good. They were in the top half. They were 12th in the league with only 103 penalties. They didn't convert very well. They only converted 35.6% of their third downs, which was 25th in the NFL. So let's just say they weren't very good last season, okay? Let's just say their offense was not very good. But what kept them afloat was that defense. The defense was pretty darn good, all right? I will say it was one of the better defenses in the league. It was definitely above average. You could argue it was a top 10 defense. They finished 4th in points allowed per game, 18.6. That's very good, but obviously if that's 4th and you're only scoring 17.5, that kind of shows you that's a pretty big problem. But only 18.6 allowed per game, which is really good defensively. They were 8th in total yards allowed, 5,186, and they were 22nd in turnovers, where they forced 19 turnovers. So not bad, a little bit below average on that one. 9th in passing yards allowed. They were 4th in passing touchdowns allowed, allowed. They were 25th in interceptions. They were 6th in rushing yards allowed. So as you guys can see, this was a pretty good defense. I mean, I should say a really good defense last year. That's what really held them afloat, because their offense did not. It was their defense that was able to honestly keep them in football games. And if you watch the Lions' last 2 games against them last season, obviously Matt Stafford not being there makes it a lot harder to score, but the Lions really struggled. I mean, the Lions really struggled to put up points, to finish off drives, to get to the end zone. They scored 13 in one game. The other game was 20. It was rough. It was a struggle for the Detroit Lions to put up points. Chicago Bears, offensively, they should not have won 8 games, but defensively, they did their thing. So that's why they were a 500 team. Heading into 2020, we'll see if that changes at all. I'm expecting them to have a much better defense than offense, and that's where they seemingly focused this offseason. And Mitchell Trubisky has been named a starter for week 1, so that's something to look at. And Mitchell Trubisky will be the starter, not Nick Foles. So at least we get to look at Trubisky with the Bears and kind of see what he did against us last season. If you look at those 2 games, I mean, his stats aren't even that crazy. 16 completions, 173 yards, and 3 touchdowns in their first win against us. Get back to that in a second. But I really want to do first is kind of look at some of the moves they made this offseason, because like I said, we don't get to look at this team and what they've done so far this year, so no one really pops off to you. You really have to just take a look at some of the offseason additions, some of the main ones that you think could have a major impact. Obviously, the first draft pick was Cole Kmet, who was a tight end. They also brought in Jimmy Graham, another tight end, so they really tried to fix that position, give some more weapons to either Nick Foles or Trubisky. Right now, it'll be Trubisky. That'll be nice for them, especially in the red zone. They're going to try to finish off some drives there, but we know that first-year tight ends tend to not be crazy good in their first year. I mean, they can be good, but they're not usually crazy good. They brought in Robert Quinn, who was like the biggest signing. I believe he signed like a $70 million deal. Obviously, he's going to join Khalil Mack, so that's definitely their strength. I mean, you could just look at it on paper. That's their strength. They did lose Eddie Goldman. He opted out of the season. Their big defensive tackle, their big nose tackle, he opted out of the season, so they're going to rely on some other guys to try to step up and take up a bigger role. Jalen Johnson, who they drafted at cornerback to add some help there. Travis Gibson, another pass rusher. Jermaine Ifeidi, the offensive lineman they brought in. So a couple of additions here. Obviously, you know, they didn't go out and get some crazy weapons or anything like that. They still have Allen Robinson, and, you know, they're expecting some other guys to hopefully take it to the next level, take a little bit of a leap next year offensively, ability to get pressure. I mean, if you look at it, when you have Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, Nichols, Akeem Hicks coming back, and then you got Nichols. And so obviously that's the thing that you really have to focus on when you look at this team, and we haven't got to see Robert Quinn there yet. But we do know when Khalil Mack was without Akeem Hicks, who was down with an injury, he was much worse. He didn't get as much pressure. He didn't make as many stops. I mean, his pressure rate basically cut in half when he was out without Hicks. So adding a guy like Robert Quinn could definitely help. And last year, Khalil Mack, who was taking double teams, sometimes triple teams, really didn't get too much help off the other side. And Floyd, they weren't able to get tons of pressure. And that's a huge reason they went out and got Robert Quinn, is to have 2 really good guys to get pressure and really make it tough on an offense to just pick up one, because you really have to focus on both of them right now. And usually when you think of 2 really good pass rushers, usually your thought is, hey, we run the football and we can take them out of the game. And that should be probably some of the strategy. I'm assuming that's going to be a lot of the strategy heading into week 1. But let's hop into some of my takeaways. So I have some takeaways from watching some of the games, the 2 games we played against them last year, and even some other games that they played in, and just some things that I noticed about certain players on the Bears, certain things that they do, where they had success, and where I think the Lions could attack them next season. Okay, now the first one is this. This just goes back to the 2 games we lost last season, and we know the Lions this entire offseason have been about finishing, you know, dagger time. Well, we saw that again in these 2 games. I mean, the Detroit Lions just could not finish, and it wasn't necessarily about finishing the game as much as it was finishing off a drive, getting into the end zone, scoring. If you watch the first Chicago Bears game, the Lions, back-to-back opportunities to put up touchdowns, they don't do it. They settled. The Detroit Lions did not finish the Chicago Bears. Obviously, a 6-0 is way different from 14-0, and Chicago was able to go score right before half, and then coming out of half, which we know Matt Patricia, that's what he wants to do, score before and then go out and score again. Well, that was the complete opposite. The Detroit Lions instead allowed a touchdown, then they came out and scored again. So it was a 6-0 to 14-6, just like that. And just a matter of, you know, about 4 minutes left in the second quarter to the very beginning of the third quarter, you're down by 8 points all of a sudden with your backup quarterback. And obviously having Matthew Stafford helps you close out games, but offensively the Lions didn't do it. Another big problem in those games were penalties, and it was very timely penalties. They would destroy drives. They would put them back 2nd and 20, 2nd and 30 sometimes. I mean, they had some big pass interference calls that would keep drives alive. They were just big, timely penalties, and it was like, you can't have those. There was one on Slay for pass interference. There was actually another pass interference I saw. It was picked up because of offsetting penalties, but they got really, really hurt by penalties. Last year, I mean, they were still very competitive with them, even even without Stafford. But as we know, that was kind of the story without Stafford. You went 0-8 without him. You couldn't close off a game. So everybody that wants to dismiss that, Lions were close in every game, it's important because that was where the Lions really struggled. They could not close out a football game, whether it was an offense or a defense, especially Matthew Stafford was not there. And that's why we lost every single game without him. There's some things that I see on the field that the Lions really could attack against Mitchell Trubisky. Starting off with the quarterback position, and I see is disguising who you're bringing to the quarterback. It's not necessarily getting tons of pressure by bringing, 6 guys, things like that. We know Matt Patricia doesn't do that anyways. It's not how he does things. A lot of times it's just 4 players. But where he had success is showing blitz, showing a lot of different moving pieces. Mitchell Trubisky not really knowing what's coming. And when he would snap it, he would kind of get off balance. Maybe he would make the wrong decision. Offensive line would let up a lot of open holes. And that's where your sacks came from, is when you really couldn't tell what was coming. If you're watching from our perspective on the TV, sometimes you kind of just know there's no one that's showing blitz or anything like that. But when the Lions would show multiple players and then someone drop, someone come, Mitchell Trubisky would get kind of flustered. The offensive line would mess up. They'd open some holes, and all of a sudden the Detroit Lions are getting back there, getting pressure, getting sacks. And that's kind of Matt Patricia's mindset. That's how Bill Belichick used to do things. That's their mindset, is, kind of disguise everything. You don't have to bring 6 guys, but you don't really know what's coming. It's really going to mess you up. And it messed up the Bears O-line. And it messed up Trubisky. And if you look at him statistically, he's actually been better against pressure, but where he's actually seemingly struggled is when he sees that blitz, when the blitz is coming, because it seems to mess up his mechanics, things like that. So showing the blitz doesn't necessarily mean you have to blitz, but showing them. Sometimes they would only bring 3 guys and they were able to get there because he would hold the football too long. 4 guys. They had a lot of success with 4 guys. It was really about kind of confusing Mitchell Trubisky, and that's really where he struggled. And I think that's been one of his biggest struggles so far in the NFL. Quarterback's all about that about the mental state, realizing everything, being able to see where the blitz is coming from. And the Lions, when they did a good job disguising it against the Chicago Bears, that's when they had success. That's when they were able to get to the quarterback, fluster him, make him make mistakes. Defensively, the Lions seem to really struggle against outside plays, stretch runs, off the tackle. Those kind of runs is where the Lions really seem to struggle. They were not bad in the inside against stuffing that run for the Chicago Bears. And on the year, they weren't bad. I believe they were 8th in yards per carry allowed, which is obviously pretty darn good. That's in the top quarter of the league. But where they really struggled was on the outside runs, getting out to the edge. That's where they struggled. And I think a lot of it's going to have to come down to those edge rushers, those edge linebackers, make some plays. Your Christian Jones. Those players need to step up, make some big plays. Possibly Jamie Collins if he's out there. Trey Flowers had a heck of a game. Had really good games against Chicago. Trey Flowers made some big plays off the edge. He got a lot of pressure. Trey Flowers was really, really good against Chicago, and I think it would be another focal point for the Lions to have success defensively. Finish off drives. They didn't play very well, but when they got down there, they took advantage of the opportunity. They put it in the end zone. They finished off plays. That's what the Bears did, and they don't want Mitchell Trubisky to pass a ton. And even heading into this year, you can go watch Bears guys. They don't want to pass a ton. Their strategy is to run the football, be a run-first team. They know Trubisky's not this guy that just go out there and pass all the time. It's very difficult to do that as an NFL team and be successful consistently, especially when Mitchell Trubisky is your quarterback. No hate Trubisky, but he's not the best quarterback in the league. We get that. They don't want him to pass the ball a ton. They want to have success in the running game, and we know that you can set up a play action without having that much success anyways in the rushing attack. So I think stopping the edge is going to be a very, very important key to the Lions defensively, and I saw that last season, and I saw that in the games that we played against them. Coverage, the Detroit Lions really seemed to struggle over the middle, and I think it was, the usual suspect, Jarrad Davis. He really seemed to struggle over the middle. When the Lions would drop in the zone, they would attack the middle. Jarrad Davis is not a very good coverage linebacker. I'm just going to say it like it is. Hopefully he improves to next year, but he's just not very good. But now you're going to see Tavai, definitely Jamie Collins, arguably the best pass coverage linebacker over the middle. Those kind of players are going to make a world of difference against the Chicago Bears because Jarrad Davis really struggled. And I can see Davis, a guy that gets more opportunities on the outside to help set the edge because that's where the Lions struggled in the run game. We know he can stop in the run game. He can make some plays there, but it's when he drops into coverage, that's when you see problems. He can also blitz. It's when he drops into coverage, that's when you see problems. The more they can get him out of those situations where Trubisky can attack him over the middle, make some plays over the middle, the better for the Detroit Lions defense. I think another major piece for the Lions defense is going to be that safety position. And we know Will Harris been working with the ones, getting a lot of opportunities, a lot of reps there. And I think now that I'm looking at it more about the Bears and the game plan and what they really did well against the Lions, it was attack Will Harris. They attacked the heck out of Will Harris and that safety group one-on-ones with tight ends, running backs. They really attacked the safeties for the Lions. And Tracy Walker's going to do his thing. Deron Harmon's going to do his thing. But with no Jaron Kearse for the first 3 weeks because of a suspension, they've been giving Will Harris a lot of opportunities with first-team reps. He's going to be arguably the X factor for the Lions, I think, in this game because he's going to be put in a lot of positions where they're going to try to attack him. They were successful with it last year. You're going to bet they're going to try to go out there and do it this year. He needs to be good in coverage. He needs to be much better better in man-to-man coverage. I mean, the guys aren't faster than him, but he just gets himself in really bad situations at times. He shows glimpses where he can be good. He's just a very young player. It's a lot to ask of a rookie. I get it. But heading into year 2, we definitely need him to step it up. And I think the Lions have been forcing him in those first-team roles. They're forcing him out there to make him better now because it's going to be really big against week 1. And even for the rest of the season, because the Bears attack it. I haven't looked into all the other teams yet, but I know a lot of other teams are going to continue to attack the safety spot. The Lions struggle at that position defensively. So I think Will Harris can be a super, super big part. Now, on the Lions offense, they tried to attack on the ground against the Chicago Bears, and I think some of that has to do with, well, you got a second string and the third string quarterback. You don't have Stafford out there because the Bears are really good against the run, but they're really good pretty much against everything defensively. And I think heading into this one, a big strategy for the Lions is going to be to attack the inside runs. You saw they went out and got AP. Bo's on IR, but AP's going to kind of take over that role. Kerryon can run inside. I think it's going to be really important for them to get that run game established inside where Eddie Goldman is no longer there because he opted out of the season. They're going to be relying on some other guys to step up. Obviously, if you can run the football effectively, it's really going to make it difficult on those pass rushers because they just want to get to the quarterback. But if you can run at them, have success, it's going to slow them down. It's going to take pressure off the quarterback. I actually listened to Bill Belichick last night when he was talking on a college football game about that, being able to run the football, control the possession. That's been the whole Lions strategy this offseason is to build that. They're going to have to do it against Chicago week 1, and that will set up those opportunities to Kenny, to Marvin, which had success in one-on-one opportunities against Chicago. And you know Matthew Stafford's going to take advantage if they're there. So for the Lions offensively, it's a pretty simple formula. It's probably going to be a formula for a lot of games. It's run the football, pound the rock inside. Their strength of the team, which is Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn, where a lot of their money is, take that out of the game the best you can. Try to take that out of the game offensively because the Bears defense is kind of obvious, right? They're a defensive team. They're built around their defense, and they have that pass rush, and then they have a pretty good secondary because they have some really good stars out there. They have the Kyle Fullers. They have the Eddie Jackson. Aside from that, there's a little bit of questions at depth. They did go out and bring in Jalen Johnson, who I had as like my 5th or 6th best cornerback in this year's draft. So there's some questions right there. But with all the weapons the Lions have, if you have Kenny Golladay, who's someone that you clearly have to focus on, and then you have a guy like TJ Hockenson, and like TJ Hockenson, of course, depending on his health, if DeAndre Swift can be out there just a little bit for, maybe even some limited snaps, he's a guy that you can line up at the receiver position. He's another guy that will take some attention away from that safety group. I mean, all these little weapons inside are going to make it very, very difficult for you to focus on one thing. You really can't. You're going to have some matchups that you can work with. The only way a defense can completely shut down the Lions is if they're just dropping everybody into coverage and they're putting all these secondary guys out there because you can't put a linebacker on Swift, right? You shouldn't be able to put a linebacker on TJ Hockenson. So they're going to have to put out these DBs, and then all of a sudden, if this run game can click, I don't know what you're going to do defensively. It's not just against the Bears. It's going to be against a lot of teams because there's just so many weapons. If Kenny Galladay's a focus, all of a sudden, what about Marvin Jones Jr., right? The guy's probably had the best camp, maybe had the best camp of any player underneath options. But if TJ Hockenson can be a receiving threat for the Lions early, even Jesse James, whoever may be on the tight end position, I think they could take away some attention from, the safety group. And obviously, they got Kyle Fuller, but you have Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones, your top 2, and you have the crazy depth. So they're a defensive team, but if the Detroit Lions can get the run game going, they should have success against pretty much any defense they face this season. And if it gets one-on-one opportunities because you have to stack the box at all, Matthew Stafford's going to light it up. Now, Matthew Stafford may not have tons of attempts, but he will light it up. And when we play the Bears, sometimes we pass the ball way too much because we weren't successful on the ground. So I think it's really important for those run blockers. I know I've seen some Bears guys say, well, hey, Big V's going to struggle against Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn. Big V needs to be able to run block, and he will open up and that'll open up the passing game. If he can run block and do what we brought him in to do, we're going to have success at those spots. So the Lions need to be able to push to the power on the run game and continue to get the going, and obviously finishing off drive, getting into the end zone. All right, take advantage of the tight ends, things like that. But defensively, it's a lot of little things. I think a lot of it is that safety group. I think the edge defenders need to step up and have a good game, and that's really where I see the Lions can attack here. Look, the Lions are the better team. All right, the Lions are the better team. They arguably could have won both games last year, and they didn't have their starter quarterback for either of those games. They are the better team. They played arguably better in both those games. They just didn't finish it off. The Lions should win week 1 if they can finish off drives, finish off plays. The Lions should be the better team in this game. All right, the Bears are not going to have David Montgomery, which is their number 1 running back. So again, Tariq Cohen, expect them to try to get a lot of things going to the outside. It's going to be all about setting the edge for the Lions. And cornerbacks. I think the cornerback room, like obviously against most teams we're going to play, is going to be important because all the man-to-man we play. We saw Michael Ford struggle a little bit against the Bears last year. So I think it's going to be important to see that depth step up. But getting pass interference call like Slay was getting, not getting burnt in the secondary, it's going to be really important for the secondary and to set that edge. I think those are the 2 most important parts defensively. Disguise things, keep Mr. Trubisky guessing because he will get flustered, make some dumb plays, not throw it far enough. Mr. Trubisky doesn't want to put the ball downfield. He completes over 80% of his passes 10 yards or less. But when you start throwing it down the field, he's not very efficient. He doesn't want to put the ball downfield as much as you may think he does. He doesn't want to. He wants to dink and dunk. So all of a sudden you get him thinking and he's not really sure where to go with things. You can lock them up. And we saw it earlier. The first 4 possessions of that first game, the Lions were shutting them down. He was confused. He was flustered. He was just taking these little dump offs, and the Lions were good against the run. Things started to open up before the half and out of the half. And if that wouldn't have happened, the Lions win that game. The Lions are a much better team here. They should win this football game. I think it's a pretty basic strategy offensively. Run the ball, pound the rock, have success, set up the play action. The Lions will dominate there. And defensively, man, it's a couple little things. Just a couple players need to step up. It's going to be big for those edge defenders. It's going to be very important for the safety group. And I think, just not making dumb mistakes. Don't beat yourself. Obviously, you're going to have penalties, but don't make these dumb mistakes, all right? Don't do that. Come on, man. You're the better team. The Lions are the better team heading into this game. So I think that's the game plan for week 1. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Where do you think the Lions could exploit the Bears? Thank you, Prime, for watching, and I'm out. Look at all these cool people. Look at all these cool Hall of Fame, All-Pro, and patrons. You guys are so awesome. Look how interesting. That's an interesting name. I've never seen one like that. I'm not saying that one out loud. We got some cool stuff here, man. I appreciate all of you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys want to be part of this? Click the join button. I appreciate you guys. Look, man, you guys are cool, man. I see you. Oh, I see your... You're not sneak. I see you down there, my boy.